Hey all, this is Reddit Oscar. The previews for Metroid Prime 4 are out, and they are contentious. There are many people that have reacted negatively to the introduction of a specific character, Miles McKenzie.
Wow, what a mess. You're alone, on a planet, with no hope of survival. But you're also not sitting next to Phil anymore in that cubicle, so... win?
This negative reception is not limited to just the fans. It remains true even for people reviewing the game, previewing the games. Many reviewers, even the ones that are typically very positive, pro-Nintendo people, have expressed their dissatisfaction with this character's introduction and his role. And it's interesting because for some people, it's the only point of complaint. Even if the reviewer, the previewer, liked everything else about the game, the music, the graphics, the gameplay, the performance, the mouse functionality for the aiming, they can like everything else and still dislike Miles. His inclusion is controversial, and I expect that this is going to be a point of discussion. He's going to become increasingly controversial, and that probably won't stop even after the game has released. So in this video, we're going to talk about it. We're going to try and understand specifically what people's problem is with Miles, and why they find him so offensive. Okay, let's start with the preview from Logan Plant. Logan did the preview for IGN, and the IGN one is probably the most scathing out of all of these previews. And in IGN's Nintendo Voice Chat podcast, Logan goes on into more detail. I'll let him talk, because he explains his experience and his problems very well.
I felt like my stomach drop when this was the direction it started to go. I couldn't believe what I was seeing after how encouraged I was from the first 15 minutes to now. And it just got worse and worse. Here are some quotes that I did sample in my preview, so sorry for the repeats if you've already watched that. But he says, missiles are effective against creatures with a hard shell, you know. You pass a save room and you don't go in to save because it's a preview event. I'm not going to waste a minute going into the save room. He says, that looks important, Samus. Are you sure we don't need to use that? Referring to the save room that I'm walking by. I scan a lore tablet, which enters into my logbook because the new race is called the Lemorn. And very cool part of this game is that there's always an ancient race on these planets in Metroid Prime. And the conceit this time is that the Lemorn entrusts Samus to document their entire history before it's lost to time. Very cool idea. Because Samus is very much like a detective, a historian in these games. So to make that the plot of this is, our race is extinct. This planet could go away at any time. You need to save our history before it's gone forever. Love that. You scan one of the tablets and Miles says, can you read that? Does it say anything about this place? Wow, they really don't want anyone in here. It must be a sacred space. It is constant. It's constant to the point where his voice lines are interrupting his own voice lines. Like he cuts himself off because you see something else that he then comments on. And I swear, I am trying to approach this very fair. I am not exaggerating. It is almost nonstop. It's another the way they've done it here, where that epic choral melody is still playing. You are still Metroid behind the visor, scanning and fighting. But they have just glued on this like annoying, like, I don't know, like the worst style of MCU humor. Like when it's bad, like that level of like quippiness and cringe to a Metroid game that is otherwise fundamentally unchanged. Like if you lifted Miles from this, it would be Metroid Prime and it would be great. But they made Metroid Prime and then just like dropped this guy into it. And it just feels like a really bummer of a direction.
Okay, so those are Logan's complaints. I'm going to show one more just to corroborate. This last one is from Arlo, and I'm including him because he's typically nicer. It's rare to see him criticize this heavily.
This kind of character, like literally the entire point of this kind of character, wherever they put it, is to relieve tension. It's to relieve tension. And modern like games and movies and things, they have this thing where they feel like uncomfortable, like legitimately uncomfortable with the idea of atmosphere and tension and like emotional moments. They have this weird like nervous need to break the tension at every opportunity. And I think it's also kind of one of those like, I don't know, it feels like a corporate meddling thing sometimes. You know, it's like we need to make the game more approachable, more better suited to a wider audience, and kids and everybody. They all love this kind of like quippy Marvel humor. They all love it. That's gonna make your game sell way more. They keep saying that and they keep trying it, and it simply does not work. We all hate it. We all, universally all, hate when characters cannot shut their mouths. And out of every game series in the entire universe to receive this kind of treatment, Metroid? I don't know. You know, the atmosphere and the tension and all that, it's a little important. It's a little bit important to the Metroid series. Ask any Metroid fan what they love about the series. And if they don't say something about the gameplay, the Metroidvania formula, then they're gonna say it's the atmosphere. It's the feeling of isolation. It's the vibes. I can't believe I'm saying this. I don't need to summarize this. You know this. Everybody, every single person who has ever played a Metroid game knows this.
Okay. So from what I can tell, this is pretty representative of the complaints people are having. I've seen a lot of them at this point, and to be honest, I'm bothered by him myself. So I think I can be more specific as to exactly what the concern is. What I like about the Metroid Prime games is that they successfully took a lot of the elements that made the 2D Metroids good and transferred them into a 3D space. The most important of which is the feeling of solitude that comes from exploring a foreign, hostile, alien planet. That feeling in Super Metroid where you land on Zebes for the first time, and the area is desolate and there's a storm raging and you're expected to go off and explore this unknown territory with little guidance and a constant undercurrent of wonder and threat. Metroid Prime does that too. When landing on Talon 4, you get the sense that you're in a place that is foreign and wild. Exploring gives you the sense that you're in an old place, and that your explorations will be forcefully opposed by the natural environment, by intelligent space pirates, and by other things, more mysterious that you'll discover. The games have always reminded me a little of Dark Souls in that they set the right mood. Instead of item descriptions, a lot of the storytelling is done through the scan visor. A great deal is written, which supplements the world building and complements the atmosphere. And for me, that atmosphere, while exploring, is the point of Metroid Prime. I feel that the other elements of the game really aren't that important. For example, the gameplay, or the puzzles. They're fine, there's not really anything wrong with them, but they've never been fantastic. It's important to have them, but if something was going to change drastically, if Retro was going to decide on a bold and new approach in an effort to improve something, I would not object very hard if that's what they took the hammer to. And that's because Metroid Prime is not defined by its puzzles. All that is fine, but what defines Metroid Prime, the thing it excels at, is the exploration and the atmosphere. And Mackenzie is interfering with specifically that.
So, where to? It might be a good idea to check the map and get our bearings. How about we avoid any standing water? Those things seem pretty territorial. Seems something interesting. You sure we don't need to use that? Ah! Is everything in this jungle trying to kill us? Wow, there. One massive tree. You found something for your suit, didn't you? That door just opened all by itself.
It isn't just that he's talking and that he's cringy. It's that he's messing with the atmosphere that people have waited 18 years to experience. And I think that's pretty reasonable that that bothers people. It would be a problem even if he was a great character. So a common rejoinder that I have seen and I expect people will say is that apparently Mackenzie doesn't stay very long. And so the isolation that people value will likely remain for most of the playtime. That's potentially true. Here's a couple of problems that might arise though. Number one, this is likely to happen with a different NPC every time you visit a new zone. There's a bunch of different Federation troopers that got teleported to the planet Viros, and they all seem to have a different class. You know, you got the leader-looking guy, you got the sniper guy. Mackenzie's the engineer and he has a little wrench to the left of his health, and you'll have sections where you have to keep him safe and protect him. I suspect there's going to be something like that for all of the characters. And while it's possible that those characters too won't overstay their welcome, with Mackenzie, you meet him as you're exploring the area for the first time, and I suspect that that's going to happen with all of them. Which means that they're doing their damage during the most valuable part, the first impression. Yes, it's likely that they won't be there when I'm backtracking or when I'm getting missiles or whatever collectibles I haven't gotten. And so if you look at the total game time of how much I had to listen to them yapping, and compare it to how much time I was exploring in silence, they might end up taking a very small percentage. But if they're messing with the first impression, they'll have a disproportionate negative impact. If anything, it should be the opposite. You should be able to explore those areas kind of solo at first, and then the next time you go around, it wouldn't be so bothersome to have them talking at you. We also don't know if we're only going to have them in a scenario once. Like, are we going to only have Mackenzie once, and then from then on it'll be one for each? It could be that they each get multiple. It could be that you have several at once sometimes. In the previews, after Mackenzie leaves, he ends up setting up communications. So now he can talk to you even when he's not present. It could be that he does that sparingly, but who knows? We don't know how much the game intends to rely on their presence. Another potential rejoinder is that Mackenzie is probably the most annoying one. He's the comic relief character, and so if you have a problem with his jokes or his cringy attitude, the other NPCs are very likely not going to be that way. I think that's probably true, but again, the cringiness is not really what I take issue with. The problem is that they're talking at all, ruining my atmosphere. And it's also the things that Mackenzie was saying. Not the jokes, not the cringe. Things like, Samus, check your map. You should fire a missile at that kind of enemy. We shouldn't stand in this kind of water. You should go use the save point over there. Hey, are you sure you don't want to use the save point? There's an interesting thing over there. Why don't you check it out, Samus? He has PlayStation Studios syndrome. He's got Atreus from God of War syndrome. And nobody likes that. Nobody likes that. I am concerned that if one of these companions is with you when you are trying to do a puzzle, they will backseat the puzzle, giving you more and more hints as you take more and more time, and maybe even just giving you the answer if you take too long. So even if it's the case that the other soldiers don't lean into the comic relief angle like Mackenzie does, there'll still be a problem if they're commenting on every save point and pointing out what weapon I should use on every passing enemy. Now, of course, those are just the worst case scenarios. It does not necessarily mean that that's definitely going to come to pass, and even if it does come to pass, it might not be as severe as some people worry about, and even if it is, that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole rest of the game is going to be bad because of it. I will admit, when I first saw the trailers and the previews, I was pretty mad, but I've had time to cool off, and I've been looking at the design for the other Federation soldiers, as well as Mackenzie. And I think they look really nice, maybe Mackenzie the nicest when he's wearing his helmet. The Marvel humor cringy dialogue that people were complaining about is already not as irritating as when I first heard it. I think there's a good chance that a lot of people will find him endearing by the end of the game. Now, I think the last thing that has people concerned is the focus on the Federation. For some reasons that I've already described, the more that they focus on Samus's relationship with Federation soldiers and talking to people, the less time she has to herself, and that potentially interferes with the atmosphere people enjoy. Metroid Prime 3 is the least well-liked of the 3 Metroid Prime games. It's the one least similar to the other 2, because it took a greater focus on this kind of war with the Federation versus the Space Pirates and Phazon. And Metroid Other M also had a big focus on Samus and her relationship to Federation soldiers. Now, personally, I do not dislike the Federation. If anything, my first experience with them in Metroid Prime 2, which was the first Metroid Prime game I played, I thought they were super cool, and always wanted to learn more about them. I can like a Federation story, but it is the case that historically, the series has not done a good job with the Federation. In fact, the more the Federation is involved, the more it's the focus, the worse the game turns out. Okay. I hope this video has helped you understand why some people are very concerned about Metroid Prime 4. I think those concerns are completely rational. But personally, I'm going to save the bulk of my judgment until after I play. There's still enough that I've seen that I like that I remain somewhat hopeful. However, I admit that if I end up not liking it, I will freak the fuck out. That's the end of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching.